Come travel with me today as we take off into the night sky as we head eastbound across the Atlantic and into the land of the sunset. That's right, we're headed to Morocco, hitching a ride with what might be the most underrated carrier to cross the Atlantic with. That airline is Royal Air Maroc, the flag carrier of Morocco, and one of the newest members of the One World Alliance. With their central hub in Casablanca only a short hour flight from key European destinations, but at a far lower price point, might it be worth your time to head through Casablanca for a quick connection as you cross the Atlantic? Come fly with me as we try out their newest business class product on board one of their 787-9 aircraft, where we'll explore everything from the catering to the size and comfort of their seats. The Western Sunset is calling tonight as we're off in search of blinking adventures. Today we'll take off from Washington Dulles International Airport around 8:30 in the evening. We'll travel east across the Atlantic Ocean and into Casablanca, landing there a short 7 hours later around 9:30 in the morning. Now we're off to the nation's capital, where we'll start our journey following a quick metro ride from Washington Reagan International Airport, as today's flight is part of a larger itinerary through American Airlines. American is an airline which has few connections into Washington Dulles Airport, so today's flight required a short 1-hour metro ride to complete the itinerary. After arriving into the iconic lobby of Washington Dulles, it only took moments to find the check-in desk for Royal Air Maroc. I was met with a bit of a long line, however, thankfully as a business class passenger, I was afforded a priority check-in, and it only took a few short minutes to check in. Since I had already received a boarding pass from American Airlines earlier in the day, I declined to have a new boarding pass printed by Royal Air Maroc. I'd later find out that this was a bit of a mistake, as the TSA was unable to read my boarding pass in their system. So, I'd have to head back to the check-in desk and have a new boarding pass printed. Thankfully, this only took a few short minutes, and I was off towards the security checkpoint and on to the next hurdle of the day.
We're here, Washington Dulles Airport. We made our way through security. It's a little confusing trying to figure out where we need to go. Bit of a hiccup trying to figure out which security checkpoint to go through. Royal Air Maroc does not participate in TSA PreCheck, unlike American Airlines. So if you have TSA PreCheck with other One World partners, you're not going to get it with Royal Air Maroc. So just keep that in mind, budget a couple extra minutes. There really wasn't much of a line anyways, so it really didn't affect me. So now we're through. Go ahead and make our way over to the Turkish Airlines lounge, which also a little bit of trouble finding, but I think I know where I'm going now, so we're gonna go check that out and then see what they have to offer.
I arrived at the Turkish Airlines lounge, presented my boarding pass to the attendant, and headed into the lounge. The lounge is a bit small and admittedly a little confusing, with 2 distinct seating areas on the lower level, separated by a bathroom, and a smaller third seating area upstairs. The lounge was fairly clean, however, I did note that the bathroom area was in a bit of disarray. I'm not sure if it was due to how busy this lounge is, as not only does it serve several airlines, but as a participant of Priority Pass, there was an ever-revolving door of passengers in this lounge, and it stayed pretty busy. Food offerings were standard buffet fare, however, as far as drink options go, that is where this lounge really shined, with an extensive cocktail menu and several non-alcoholic options, including a cold brewed coffee and a kombucha on tap. I found a quiet seat in a cozy corner of the lounge and settled in for a few hours as I waited for my flight.
Just finished up in the Turkish Airlines lounge. I was a little packed in there. I guess that's one of the downsides of flying Royal Air Maroc out of Dulles, is that since there's no other One World partners here that have a major presence, they're kind of on their own when it comes to the lounge. So they contracted out to Turkish Airlines. So it's a little busy in there, a couple airlines sharing the same lounge space, but overall, pretty good offering. It's a little warm. It's a really hot day here in DC today. But good offering, and we're out of there, making our way over to our gate. So we're going to board our 787 that is going to take us on to Casablanca.
As I arrived at my gate, I noticed that a line for boarding the plane had already formed, and here we were with another 20 minutes to go until the posted boarding time, and with gate agents still rushing to place Royal Air Maroc branded signs and barriers out in preparation for boarding. I made my way over to the priority boarding line, where I stood for a few moments before a gate agent told us that the cabin wasn't ready yet and that we should wait somewhere else. This really only served to make the boarding lines a bit more chaotic, with the priority and pre-boarding lines merging into one line. However, before long, the gate agent sorted out the confusion and we were on our way down the jet bridge. I turned to the left and off to find my seat for this flight at the front of the business class cabin. The business class cabin on Royal Air Maroc's fleet of 787-9 aircraft is arranged in a 1-2-1 layout with all seats afforded direct aisle access. The A and K seats are true window seats and offer the most amount of privacy for solo travelers, whereas the center seats, designated by the letters D and F, are perfect for couples traveling together. For today's flight, I'm traveling in seat 1K, a window seat near the front of the cabin. Since my seat is at the front of the cabin, I have the added advantage of a slight bit more footroom due to my footwell extended under the bulkhead in front of me. Behind the business class cabin, there are an additional 276 seats arranged in a 3-3-3 layout with a standard 31 inches of pitch. I arrived at my seat tonight to find that the flight crew on tonight's flight had already placed a Royal Air Maroc branded pillow and blanket arranged on a plush purple seat. On the 7879 aircraft, Royal Air Maroc chose to go with the Collins Aerospace Super Diamond seat, a pretty standard seat used by many airlines in their business class cabins. To the right of my seat, there were several storage compartments. The first one contained a Royal Air Maroc branded set of headphones and amenity kits, and an LCD screen to control the seat. Behind that is a small compartment perfect for fitting a phone or other small electronics, next to which is a slot for all of the safety reading material. I always appreciate these as an extra spot to place provided menus so that I can reference them later in the flight. Near the seat is a small fold-out reading light, and below the seat there is another small storage cubby which I never really found a good use for. To the left of the seat, there is another armrest with storage inside of it. This armrest is adjustable and goes all the way down for a bit of extra width in bed mode, which is essential for someone with shoulders as wide as mine and offers so much extra comfort in bed mode. Under the IFE screen, you'll find a small but sturdy table that pulls out for meal service or any work which you may wish to accomplish during the flight. Also, can I just say that I love what Royal Air Maroc did with their branding in this seat? I love these seat covers with their signature geometric pattern, which you will find throughout the cabin. The head of this seat has an adjustable headrest, which, when combined with the provided pillow, makes sinking into the comfort of the seat quite easy. Another feature that I really love about my seat is the ledge in front of my seat, since I am seated in the bulkhead seat. I loved being able to set books and video gear here while I was getting situated and during the flight. I also really enjoy the artificial plants placed here during the boarding process. I always feel like it's the little embellishments that set an airline apart, and Royal Air Maroc paid meticulous attention to the details in this cabin. Not long after I was settled into my seat, crew offered a welcome beverage. Since lemon mint juice was an option, of course I went with it, and let me tell you, it was such a refreshing option for such a hot Washington evening. As I was being offered my welcome drink, I was also offered a menu for this evening's flight in English, French, and Arabic. I was then asked which meal option I'd like, and also if I'd like to be woken for breakfast. That right there is where I made my first mistake. Pre-boarding Kevin thought that the breakfast options looked great on the menu, but 2 hours before landing, Kevin would not feel the same way. Before pushback, I had a moment to check out the flight map on the IFE screen. As an av geek, I love a good flight map, and I found this one to be responsive and quick to the touch. Before long, the cabin was ready for departure, and we pushed back from the gate, serenaded by the safety demonstration video, which, while basic, is always a novelty that I kind of enjoy. We taxied out to the main runway, past the lights of the control tower and the rows of planes about to start the same transatlantic journey as us. Before long, we were down the runway, banking over the DC suburbs and off towards our destination in Morocco. Now that we're in the air, it's time to kick my shoes off and relax for a little bit. Unfortunately, Royal Air Maroc did not provide slippers on tonight's flight. Not that my feet fit in many airline-provided slippers anyways, so it really wasn't an amenity that I spent any time lamenting.
First impressions of the seat. It's very wide. I definitely feel like my shoulders have plenty of room on either side of me. The seat is actually really cushy. I definitely feel like this is one of the more comfortable seats I've ever been on. And this divider here definitely gives a whole bunch of extra privacy. So that's definitely a plus. I'm definitely enjoying the seat configuration of this flight.
After we finished our initial climb out of the Washington area, cabin crew started in-flight service with a sanitary towel wipe. While not a warm towel, I loved the rose scent of this Royal Air Maroc branded towel. It was a wonderful touch to start out the flight. The towel service was followed by the crew handing out this Royal Air Maroc branded bag of nuts and paprika cookies. Again, while not plated in any particularly fancy manner, the very on-brand packaging is exactly on par with everything else on this flight. A perfect representation of the country the airline represents. Warm and welcoming, with its own style and plenty of hospitality. This was then followed by an appetizer dish, which again, is a touch that several airlines have done away with. I paired all of these items with a glass of white wine as I sank into my seat and settled in prior to the meal service. I barely had time to fully invest in my movie before meal service began. The flight attendant came around and set out tablecloths, and while this was a nice touch, I have to admit that at first I wasn't too impressed with the presentation of the salad plate, as it arrived on a plastic tray. The salad itself, however, was actually not bad. Fortunately, the main dish was served on an actual plate. Granted, aside from that, it really wasn't all that impressive. There were only 3 pieces of chicken and a fair bit of rice with a single carrot as garnish. While not bad from a flavor perspective, I was pretty underwhelmed by the main course overall. I should mention that regardless of any amount of disappointment I had regarding the main course, it certainly does not have any reflection on the crew. The crew on this flight were so attentive, they were constantly checking on me and asked to top off my water or wine glasses before they were even empty. Once again, the level of service provided by the crew on this flight was absolutely top-notch. The main course was followed by a cheese plate and a dessert which consisted of a berry cheesecake which, while flavorful, just seemed to scream that it was straight out of a box. While there's nothing wrong with that, it just sticks with the same theme of the meal overall. Flavorful and adequate, but ultimately mediocre. Let's just say that catering is not the department where Royal Air Maroc shines the most. Meal service was finished just slightly past an hour and a half into the flight, which I do appreciate since I'm exhausted at this point from a full day of traveling and commuting across the Washington suburbs. Now it's time for me to recline my seat and check out just what the seat is like in bed mode. I touched on how plush the seat is earlier in the video, and I will say that that is certainly still the case in the lie flat position. Now I know what you're asking. Kevin, what is the shoulder space like? Because those of you that follow this channel know that that is the key factor in deciding whether or not I'm going to have a good night's sleep in flight. I have to say that I'm actually impressed. The armrest offers plenty of room for me to stretch out my elbows, and despite my broad 24-inch or 61 centimeter wide shoulders, I don't feel cramped in this seat at all. I'm even able to side sleep comfortably in this seat thanks to ample space in the footbox. Remember earlier when I said 2 hours before landing Kevin wouldn't be so happy with my decision to get woken for breakfast? Well, here we are, but before breakfast I'm off to check out the lavatory. There's nothing too special here, it's a standard 787 lavatory, but I do like the very on-brand purple lights in here. It's a nice touch for this nighttime flight. At least I think it's night now since this is a 787 and the crew have chosen to dim all of the windows. But were it a daytime flight, I'm sure this window would offer some great views for any length of time I chose to spend in there. Back in my seat, I'm offered a glass of orange juice, and of course I'm going to request a nice cup of coffee since I'm still groggy, lethargic, and quite zombie-like. Putting my lack of sleep aside, I'm actually much more impressed with the breakfast service on this flight than I was with the first service. I chose to go with the omelet, which isn't the easiest thing for an airline to plate, but Royal Air Maroc really did a great job despite serving it 5 hours after leaving Dulles. The omelet is soft, the cheese melty, and I have to admit it almost makes up for my abbreviated sleep cycle. As we began our descent into Casablanca, I took a moment to reflect on the flight as I glared out the window at the countryside below me. I have to say that from the moment I stepped on this plane, I've been impressed. The service was impeccable. While the process checking in and boarding in Dulles wasn't the smoothest, Royal Air Maroc certainly made up with that with service in the air. After this flight, I can clearly see a place for this airline as a part of the One World Alliance network. However, I will say that it would be nice if this flight fit better into the One World network since Dulles really isn't an airport served by them. Granted, if I chose to cross the Atlantic with Royal Air Maroc in the future, I could connect to one of the One World Alliance partners fairly seamlessly in Miami. With service at such an exemplary level on this flight, I'd certainly consider them on a Trans-Atlantic Itinerary. Who knows, maybe in the future I'll forego busy European hubs like London Heathrow with their new electronic travel authorization process and choose a layover and connection through Casablanca instead. Thank you so much for joining me in the skies today. It's viewers like you who encourage me to continue sharing my travels. If you enjoyed today's video, please like and subscribe to my channel. Once again, thank you to Royal Air Maroc and the flight crew on this flight. You made this flight such an outstanding experience. For those of you watching at home, until I see you next time, so long for now, and I'll see you up in the clouds on my next video.